talk to you a little bit about asana and teaching asana. Those of you who have taken the asana course, you have a worksheet that you receive that you work through our 33 main asanas, and you check off certain things that will allow you to better understand that asana, but also to better teach it. And so I thought it would be a good review for us now to go over that. Those of you who had the course in asana, you'll find it to be a good review. And those of you who are starting with teaching yoga, it will be really important for you. So the main points that we want you to understand about an asana are really points that will help you teach that asana, and also, as I said, to execute it. So to begin with, we want to know, as Jessica Char says, we always want to know why we are doing the asana. What is the reason we're doing the asana? For example, if I am doing a back bend, I'm just going to stand here and do kind of a simple standing back bend. What is the reason I am doing this? And so I can just tell you it's probably because we want to strengthen the back body and open up the front body. I'll just keep it real simple here. So that is the main function, or the main benefit, the main function as well. Because when we open up the front body, we stretch muscles in the front body that might be over tight. When we strengthen the back body, we strengthen muscles that tend to be more weak. So the function and the benefits allow us to do all the other things that we're going to do to be an effective teacher, a good teacher. When we know what the function of the asana is, for example, to stretch the front body, if we're doing something that, if we have a multi-level class, for example, and we have some students who would be quite fine doing wheel pose or a drop down in a back bend, we can give them the same cues because there's the same impressionable actions as somebody that might be doing a simpler back bend. For example, maybe standing on their knees and just doing a gentle back bend this way, or even lying on the floor and doing a bridge pose. So again, all these shapes, whether you're doing standing, whether you were doing on your knees, or whether you're in this bridge pose, we're strengthening our back body and we're stretching our front body. So that is the function and the benefit of all back bends. In each category that we talk about, we have axial lengthening, forward folds, spinal extension. We have several different categories. And in our asana course, we go over each of those and talk about what the functions and the benefits are. So the next topic that we talk about in this asana worksheet is the position. So the position is basically the shape of the posture. The position is, for example, again, back to standing back bend, you would say your feet are wider than hip distance apart, knees slightly bent. You bring your pelvic girdle into neutral and then begin to work a little bit into a backward pelvic tilt. You extend the spine up. You feel the strength beginning to develop in the back body, the stretch in the front body. This is the general shape of the position. Just like if we're going to do back to camel pose, Ustrasana, the basic shape is the pelvic girdle is in a slight backward pelvic tilt where our hips are right over our knees. And again, we feel that extension of the spine so that we feel the strengthening in the back body and the opening in the front body. Same thing in bridge pose. The position is your feet are hip distance apart. And again, you feel the strengthening in the back body, the opening in the front body. So the position is a little bit more precise as far as exactly where your body is. It's very important and it will help you with your cueing, of course. But the other thing that's going to help you with your cueing is something called key impressionable actions. And it comes about third down on your asana worksheet. The key impressionable actions, I think of them as giving life to the pose. So you have your basic position, you have your basic gentle back bend. Now, what can we do to give it life? Obviously, probably one that we'll all use all the time is we root our feet to feel a sense of rising up. But you'll be able to find that there's lots of other impressionable actions that will give this pose life. One that I like to use lots of times works with the lines of energy. So if you think of the lines of energy emanating from your low belly or your hara in this shape, you feel as you root lines of energy moving down through your legs into the earth, and also a line of energy moving up your spine and through the crown. So that would have to do with key actions, key impressionable actions. Other key actions include actions of your muscles. For example, you might say engage the muscles along the back body, stretch the muscles in the front body. Key actions also have to do lots of times with the bandhas. So you think of, for example, you feel the pada bandha, the lift in the arches, the mula bandha, the lift in the pelvic floor, the uddiyana bandha, the lift in the low belly, the jalandhara bandha, the lift in the back of the throat. And you see how that takes just the basic shape that I was in and just gives it a little bit more life. So the other things that we talk about in this worksheet are release valves. And release valves, that word sometimes can be tricky for people. Sometimes it's like, what does that mean? Release valves are, by Gary Kraftsow's definition in Desikachar, they're compensatory actions that your body does. One of my teachers, Eric Schiffman, just said, it's where energy bloops out. So back to our standing back bend. The energy in this pose, where you might bloop out, or compensatory actions, release valves, would be your low back. We have the tendency to compress the low back, also the back of the neck. These are both considered secondary curves, and we have a tendency to exploit our secondary curves, our neck and our low back. So those would be the release valves here. Another release valve might be that we just tend to lose energy out the front body. We forget to maintain that uddiyana bandha, that lifting of the inner abdomen up towards the back of the heart. So those bandhas, when you are aware of them in relationship to the release valves, the places in a pose where you might have a tendency to release energy out from, you can protect yourself. So in this pose where we have the release valve being the low back, we'll just stay right there. That root lock helps to keep that low back a little bit longer. The uddiyana bandha definitely helps to keep that longer, and even the jalandhara bandha. So you see that those bandhas can help you take care of the release valves. So you can see how this is all really tied in together, and you can use it for your cueing. Two other things that we ask you to think about on this worksheet are contraindications and modifications. So again, if you know why you are doing this pose, that's why we come back to the very beginning. Knowing why you're doing the pose is so important. The contraindications for a pose, and let's just use, again, the back bend. The contraindications are we can exploit the low back. And this is especially dangerous if you have back issues, some instability in the sacrum or the low back, herniation in parts of the back. So knowing that it could be an issue for some people, when you are aware of the contraindications, you can use that in your cueing. So again, the bandhas are going to help you more than about anything as far as taking care of those contraindications, just really cueing to feel that lift in the uddiyana bandha, even a lift in the perineal floor. You'll see that helps bring a little bit more stability, because that's what we want for people that have unstable spines or unstable, especially sacrum or low back. We want to provide that stability. And you can take this, so for example, a modification for a standing back bend might be if feet are bothering people, or if it's just kind of scary for them to go back, coming onto their knees. It would be the same type of cueing, lifting the perineal floor. And this is a modification for what we just did. Also a modification if there is some fear in the breathing, if they can be next to a wall where they can put their hand on the wall so that they begin to feel a little bit more safe in this pose. And of course, as you might guess, I'm sure you're already thinking of all the different alternatives. If you know why you're doing the pose, modifications for people in those situations where maybe standing doesn't feel good or being on their knees doesn't feel good, you can have people come to their back and come back into bridge pose. That would be a great modification. Or people for example, people that are pregnant, it's not going to feel comfortable for them to be on their belly in locust pose, which could be another modification for all these back bends. So in that case, you might have them come into, some people call this table, some people call it cat pose, but just to feel a little bit of the lengthening of the heart here, the opening of the front body, balanced by just a tiny bit of a cat tilt. So I'm not letting my pelvic girdle tip forward. I'm feeling just a tiny bit of a backward pelvic tilt, but then bring more extension into the upper part of the spine. So knowing the release valves helps you with any of the modifications and contraindications. Again, I already mentioned the contraindications tend to be people that have hypermobility in their spine or instability in their sacrum, low back. The last thing that you need to know is a word called kramas. And again, if you've been in the Asana workshop, you've learned a lot about that. And if you've been through the sequencing lesson of this course, Teaching Yoga, you've learned that kramas means there's steps, just like steps to do anything, a progression of steps, a hierarchy of steps. So we always need to begin with the most fundamental step in any of these back bends would be finding that bit of a backward pelvic tilt. And the reason the backward pelvic tilt, if you're wondering, is because we have a tendency to tip our pelvic girdle forward in back bends. We tend to, as we said, the release valve is a little back. So by bringing a little tiny bit of a backward pelvic tilt, we can help eliminate that tendency to exploit the low back. So that's first step in back bends, is to find the pelvic tilt. There's just a little bit of a backward pelvic tilt. Sometimes you have to have more of one. So step one, probably all of your students in a multi-level class will benefit from finding that simple step to begin with. And then we build on that, just like you ladder anything, just like when you're taking math classes, you start out with addition, simple addition before you jump into calculus. That's a pretty obvious example, but that's what we're doing here. We're building slowly in kramas. That's all a krama is. So when you know the kramas, you can take a pose and make it available to everyone in your class. So if let's say we're doing camel again, we've already talked about modifications of holding onto a wall or keeping your hands on your hips, not trying to go back so far. Those each would be a krama. And then if you want to take this deeper, for students that needed to go deeper, you can emphasize that first step, the backward pelvic tilt. You begin to think about, or ask them to think about lifting a little bit more, keeping the bandhas, keeping the chin tucked in. You might ask them to extend one arm up. These are all steps that might take students into a camel pose. But you see, starting out at the beginning with that simple pelvic tilt is super important. So we have steps to get into poses and steps to get out of poses. And when you're sequencing any class, it's really important to know the kramas to get in and to get out. And that can be a great way to sequence a class. It's not like you have to have thousands of different asanas in a class. Keeping it simple and really keeping your kramas clear, concise, so that you can reach out to more people in your class, more levels of people. So check it out. This little handout is available on our course. It's available in the asana section, but we also have it available in the teaching yoga section, and it's just an essential tool for you to use. All right, thanks.